Welcome, everyone, to Redacted on this Wednesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
Welcome to the sunniest state in America. Glad to have you guys all here from the Rocky Mountains. We've got a very busy show for you on this Wednesday. We're going to be talking about RFK Jr. because we've been reporting about these chemtrails now for a number of years here on the show. Geoengineering, weather modification. Well, RFK Jr. just let the cat out of the bag on a number of issues, not just chemtrails and who's responsible, what agency inside the United States government, but also his own HHS, responsible for child trafficking before he took over the job under the previous administration. We'll talk about that.
But California, they're A-OK with child trafficking, also child sex work, because California lawmakers have voted down legislation to make it illegal to solicit sex with 16 and 17-year-olds. So they don't want that to be illegal. You should be able to do that. California is crazy. They're super crazy. They also want to decriminalize welfare fraud.
Oh,
so good. You can steal up to $25,000 from the welfare state. That's super wild. So we're going to talk about that as well.
Also, we're going to talk about where are the children? 350,000 missing children in the United States that were trafficked across state lines. Where are those children? Where, President Trump, before he was president, said that these children, are likely, well, he said likely dead. Under the Biden administration. So now we're getting information, of course, about HHS, but where are the arrests? Where's Pam Bondi? Where's Kash Patel? Where's the FBI on these arrests of these of these people?
We know who did it. We know it was under Alejandro Mayorkas. So who will be? We had whistleblowers all throughout the Biden administration. Anybody want to do something about that? Also, we're going to talk about a new law that Republicans have put forward to make universities pay for unpaid student debt. So, Clayton, I just want to do a little thought experiment since we're talking about schools. Do you think that if liberal universities had to pay unpaid student debt because they didn't train students that actually can do anything in the workforce, would they still have classes like, deconstructing Beyonce? Would they still put classes like that? That's a real class. That's a real university class. Would they still put their efforts into training absolutely untrained students with six-figure debt? Do you think that would still happen if they were on the hook for it?
DEI basket weaving classes,
right?
Things like that.
Things like that. Yeah, that trains you to do nothing but be a barista. We're going to talk about that. We're not actually going to talk about that gay pride story today. We're going to hold it to tomorrow. So you're going to have to come back tomorrow for that. But we're busy enough today as it is.
Yeah, we got a lot of RFK news to get here in a moment. So let's talk about all of that. But first,
we want to tell you about our friends over at American Financing, because with everything that's happening in the economy, of course, it feels like we're all on shaky ground. Companies aren't hiring. They're not sure what to do. People are stuck at a really high level. Nothing seems affordable anymore. So it's no wonder that so many people are relying on credit cards to cover the gap. Well, credit card debt is skyrocketing and leaving people stressed out. But if you're a homeowner and you have equity in your house, this may be your secret to digging yourself out of the red. American Financing can help you take control. They can help you access the equity in your home and pay down that high interest bad debt, leveraging it for good debt. Leverage is the secret to wealth, the secret that wealthy people know that we are not taught in schools. On average, they're saving people just like you $800 a month, and they can close a loan in 10 days, giving you maybe a month or two off your mortgage payment. So don't wait and let the chaos of the economy get you. Call American Financing now at 866-890-8434 or head on over to americanfinancing.net/redacted. One more time, that's americanfinancing.net/redacted. Boy, we have these new microphones. Sounds really clear to me.
They sound great, don't they?
Unfortunately, I can hear my own congestion. If you hear that too, I'm just giving over influenza B. So it's not a sexy voice. I did not get my Kathleen Turner voice. Instead, I sound like I've been punched in the nose. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I sound great. All right. So that's
and
good.
you look great too.
Right.
I look beautiful.
Hey, I should point out today, April 30th, 1789, today marks the first day, George Washington's first inauguration. Inauguration. He took the oath of office as the first president of the United States in New York City at Federal Hall. Then it was the capital of New York City, then the capital of the United States at the time.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable. So April 30th, 1789, our first president. All right, let's get into some other news, though. Well, they called us conspiracy nuts. They called us crazy for exposing, of course, what was going on with chemtrails over America. Well, now RFK Jr. just publicly named the government agency behind most of it, and he says it's been going on for years. These are crimes against humanity, of course. The Vigilant Fox has, by the way, done a great job of cataloging RFK's promises before he became HHS secretary on a whole host of issues, but specifically this issue, he responded to an ex-post last year before taking office, and he said this: we are going to stop this crime. He's specifically talking about these chemtrails. We are going to stop this crime. So he was emphatic about this. Well, so yesterday, RFK Jr. sat down with Dr. Phil, and he kind of shocked us all when he answered a question from a woman named Emily. She wanted answers about the toxins being sprayed over America every day, and here's what he said. Watch. Wow. Okay. There you go. So DARPA, he says, not my agency. It's DARPA. This is a remarkable admission, which DARPA, of course, which is short for Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, is the United States government's high-tech, basically Frankenstein factory. This is the same agency, by the way, that brought us the internet. Sure. Okay. I guess you could argue maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. We wouldn't be able to do this show without it. Mind control research. Killer drones, brain-computer interfaces, AI systems that can predict your behavior before you even think it. DARPA is also reportedly, involved in gain-of-function research, virus research, including gene editing, pandemic prevention technologies. DARPA is spraying chemicals all over America. Good luck getting answers on that. DARPA doesn't answer to you. It doesn't answer to me. And half the time, by the way, it doesn't even answer to Congress. What sort of off-the-books projects is DARPA running? And it operates in the shadows with an unlimited budget and a God complex. DARPA operates, by the way, under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who just announced a new $1 trillion budget for DOD. So good luck reining in DARPA anytime soon. Maybe if someone other than Fox News is ever allowed to interview these people, maybe we could actually get some answers about it. Yesterday, reports of blue rainwater falling over California also happened. This happened yesterday in the Central Valley of California. Blue rainwater?
So I live here in the Central Valley, and it was raining a couple minutes ago. Can anyone explain the blue water?
I cannot.
Yeah, that's normal. So blue rainwater. Great. Okay. We'll keep our eye on that story.
Also, RFK Jr. just dropped a bombshell about who in the United States government has been trafficking children. These are reports we did finally get the Biden administration to admit to, but now RFK Jr. is saying they put a stop to it. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But speaking of sex trafficking, California is A-OK with it as long as you're over 15. They do have a bill on the books that makes it illegal to solicit anyone under 15 for sex work, but they think it's just too much to add the ages 16 and 17. So lawmakers just voted down a proposal that would make it a felony to purchase 16 and 17-year-olds for sex. They're still children. This is Assembly Bill 379. Again, it is already on the books. They want to amend it to increase the age limit from 15 to 17. So anyone under 18. And lawmakers are like, no, you should be able to get 16-year-olds. That's all right. Here is California Assembly member and Public Safety Chair Nick Schultz saying he just doesn't think this is necessary. It's a knee-jerk reaction, he says.
So right now in Sacramento, there is a well-known blade. KCRA did a documentary on it. It's just a few miles away from here. Sheriff Jim Cooper has said that right now, if a John were to go and try to purchase a 16 or 17-year-old on that blade and law enforcement were to intervene, because of a judge's order right now in Sacramento, law enforcement would not be able to put that person in jail because it's not the solid felony that law enforcement has been asking it to be. So I just want to make sure, like, you're okay with 16 and 17-year-olds continuing to be purchased on this blade for the next year or until you have to dissect this issue in the fall, and these Johns getting let go and just issued with citations?
Well, I don't agree with the premise of the question, but what I would say is I'm not okay with any child anywhere being exploited, but the solution that we craft, the solution that we pass needs to make sense, it needs to be equitable, it needs to be comprehensive. And while I appreciate Assemblymember Krell for bringing the proposal forward, and I know that her heart is on this issue, it's connected in a way that few other legislators can really be equal to or understand, it's also my job to make sure that we're not just passing knee-jerk policy, but we're having good, substantive conversation and landing on a good spot. So to the sheriff, the district attorney, and any other stakeholders, I hope that they'll continue to engage not just with Assemblymember Krell, but with all the members of the committee, with myself, with our staff, and our goal is to get a good solution delivered here as quickly as possible.
Okay, so this is not a good solution to prohibit 16 and 17-year-olds from being purchased for sex. It's knee jerk. He needs to think more deeply about how to actually make that a thing. You know, I need to think about it for a while. In the meantime,
These people can continue to do
right.
it. You can continue to do it. Yeah, that's great.
Now, some of the concerns they have to do with loitering as described by Assemblymember Krell, who put this forward. Watch her explanation.
What we haven't done well in California is address demand. We've figured out how to go after sex traffickers a little bit better than we did before, but we've really left this gap of not going after the buyers. Without the buyers, we don't really have sex trafficking. So this bill allows us to criminalize loitering for the specific purpose of purchasing commercial sex in order to allow law enforcement to stop some of these crimes before they take place.
Okay, so the concern here that some say is, how do you know you're loitering in order to procure sex? People can just be loitering for loitering, right? Obviously, lawmakers would have to prove that you were loitering for the purpose of sex. And they even, this is a little weird, and I just wanted to bring it to you because they're very specific about how you can and cannot hang around places looking for sex. You can't hang around in a car waiting for someone to come and sell you some sex. You can't hang around someone's apartment. It even prohibits the use of a periscope, which made me laugh. Like, who's going to someone's, like, you can't use binoculars, you can't use a drone.
So,
but look at the bill.
The Johns that are out in a freaking submarine, like beep 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 beep.
I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but that's how I cruise the strip, just in my submarine.
In your submarine with your periscope.
But it's diesel. It's not a nuclear sub. It's a diesel.
Yeah. Okay. I clipped this so you can see for yourself. The text of the bill says you cannot use any instrumentality, including a camera, camcorder, mobile phone, electronic device, and a periscope to people's private places, hoping to be a peeping Tom and then get yourself some sex. You cannot do that. So lawmakers, why?
I made a periscope when I was a kid, like out of a cardboard box.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all did it. Like,
well, that was like every fourth grader did that.
Yeah, and you had the mirror at the top, the mirror at the bottom, and you're like, and I would annoy my sister.
Yeah, you cannot do that, George McFly.
All right. That's another person that fell out of a tree.
Yeah.
Lorraine.
So I don't know if you got a kick out of the periscope bit like I did, but I was like, why did they include this? Okay, so lawmakers are okay with this bill. They really don't want you using periscopes to go solicit sex from only 15 and under. 16 and up, totally fine. So that's
California. California is great, man. I swear to God.
But I mean, the best part of that is, that means that's happened before. They didn't just come up with that out of nowhere. Like, that means somebody actually was using a periscope. And I want to know the backstory. I want to know the story.
Right. Yeah, me too.
Perry the Periscope pedophile, who was like notorious. Like, we got to put that in the bill because of that guy.
Yeah.
California is looking more and more like Canada every day. So here, California is also working now to pass a bill that would decriminalize welfare fraud up to $25,000. This is California SB 560. It would remove criminal prosecution if someone is found to have stolen or lied to welfare agencies and received money. Here's the bill. You can read it for yourself if you want, not on this screen because it's a mess. It prevents the state from prosecuting someone who may have lied to the state or collected money that was not theirs. It would also expand the welfare state by assigning each recipient a qualified caseworker to identify any errors in determining the overpayment prior to establishing a claim to recover any overissuance. Okay. Why would they do this? Any people falsely being prosecuted for stealing from welfare? Will California ever learn? They decriminalized theft and they got so much of it that they had to walk that back. Now they'll decriminalize welfare fraud and get more of that and continue to bankrupt their own state. Good luck, California.
Crazy town. Crazy town. Well, a town in Texas has over $4 million of its own local tax dollars being sent to Israel. When they audited their books and found this, the town of San Marcos decided to stop that aid. Now, Governor Abbott, Greg Abbott of Texas, says you actually can't do that. It's against the law. Now, Israel receives billions of dollars in federal aid from the United States government. This local government for a small town of only 70,000 people found that their residents were sending $4 million a year. And they said, we actually don't want to do that. We want to send that to our local schools, our fire departments, maintain our roads. And the state is saying, you cannot do that. You must continue to send that money to Israel. Now, this is not quite a cut and dry story. It's outrageous that the governor is saying, no, you need to keep sending your local tax dollars to Israel. And he has his own crazy reasons. But the bill was also a little bit strange, too. This is, again, a town of 70,000 people sending over $4 million per year to Israel instead of the local priorities that they wanted. They drafted a resolution to stop that. And Governor Abbott said, you can't do that because it's anti-Semitism. So they are obligated to send their money abroad to Israel. Here is his tweet about it. And then also he wrote the letter. He says that this is against state law. What law? Well, actually, there is a law in Texas that no government entity may enter into a contract worth $100,000 or more unless it includes a written verification that the entity does not boycott Israel and will not boycott Israel during their term. So this is basically an anti-BDS law on the books. The town, though, the resolution itself is a little above its britches. It's a bit crazy because the resolution of the town calls for a ceasefire negotiation in Gaza. How can a small Texas town do that? And it calls for Israel to remove itself from Gaza. Okay. Again, that's a little insane how a small town in Texas can do this. But what they want to do is try to reallocate their own money. And the governor is saying, no, you can't have your own local priorities. Now, this is not, again, a part of the BDS movement, which calls for boycotts of Israel. Congress did try to pass a law making it illegal to boycott Israel. That never became a law. But in fact, 38 states have anti-BDS laws on their books, state laws. These have not held up in court, but they have not been struck down either. So each state has these laws. 13 additional states want to put them on the books, even though more than 70% of Americans do not support anti-BDS laws, because we should be able to boycott whoever the hell we want to. That's our right. No government should tell us what we have to support and what we don't have to support. But again, that is currently the law in many states. There is a movement in Texas to repeal that. Who knows where that will go? Now, Abbott's logic is removing the aid as a boycott. That feels to me like a stretch. Clearly it isn't. The city just wants to use their own money for domestic priorities like addiction, they say, education, and the governor is telling them they can't. So whether this goes to court, who knows? You would think that the city would have the right to say, we don't want to support just this one place. And is the governor saying, no, you have to support who I tell you to? Do they have to send money to every ally? No, just Israel. So it's pretty wild, don't you think?
I'm sure Texas is thrilled about this
right.
as they're dealing with mass illegal immigration, all the crime that they've got down there, all of the problems all the problems that they have. I'm sure they're thrilled to be sending money off to Israel.
Right.
I'm sure that that's the case.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about child trafficking in just a second. Our guest Ryan Matta is about to join us. But before we do that,
we're going to tell you about our friends over at Shopify because Well, our whole store is built on Shopify. That's right. Redactedstore.com is built on Shopify. If you go to shopify.com/redacted, you can sign up for a 1-month trial period right now. And think about this. If you got an idea for a business, right? It's midnight. You're like laying in bed. You're scrolling through this new website you found. You're hitting like an add to cart button on an item you've been looking for. And after 15 minutes, you decide you've done enough damage to your wallet. You decide to check out. You remember that your wallet and your card is in the living room. You don't want to get out of bed. Just as you're getting ready to abandon your cart, that's when you see it, that shop button. Well, that shop button has all of your payment and shipping information saved right there, saving you time while you stay warm in your bed. That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it now, because Shopify makes everything easier, from checkout to creating your own storefront. It's so funny now that I notice like Shop is responsible for so many of the things we've been purchasing for our studio. Like it's all showing up. I get a Shop notification letting me know that new microphone has arrived, that new desk it's on its way. That's Shop. That's the power of Shopify. It makes it so easy. And they'll even send you shipping information. So they're letting you know that, hey, the shirt you ordered from redactedstore.com, it's on its way, or that microphone, it's on its way. But imagine if you ran your own business that way, your own e-commerce website, from an idea that you have, and you put it out there to the world. Shopify is handling all of that on the back end. You don't have to do any of that as a business owner. Like you want to start your own coffee shop, your own selling roasted coffee beans, that whatever it is, whatever you come up with, Shopify will handle all of that. If you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to shopify.com/redacted. Sign up for a 1-month trial period today. Just give it a shot if you've got an idea for your business. Shopify.com/redacted is the place to go. All right, let me get my notes together here. Thank you guys for subscribing and being here. Everyone's saying they're thrilled that Natalie's back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Back from the dead.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. We had a strong case of influenza B in our house, and that was not fun. Yeah. When you get an adult, a fever as an adult, and you're like, it's like my kids get them all the time, and then you remember how uncomfortable it is. But I'm all good. I'm back. Sounding kind of strange.
Well, RFK Jr. just admitted what we've been reporting for years here on this show, that the U.S. government was trafficking children. More than 350,000 children were sold off and trafficked for sex and slavery in the United States. Here's RFK just kind of casually dropping this in a cabinet meeting today. Watch.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
I mean, what? Okay. HHS responsible for this. We also know the Department of Homeland Security as well. Maybe we'll hear more from that from Kristi Noem when she lets the cat out of that bag. But this is an unbelievable admission that the United States government, his own agency, he's got the documents to show, were helping to traffic hundreds of thousands of children south of the border into the United States, sold off for sex slavery, sex trafficking, and then killed. Independent journalist Ryan Mata has been trying to get answers about these missing children for years now. He's made it a mission. Of course, he's got multiple documentaries that you can check out, Trafficked, multiple. You've got so many now, I can't keep track of how many covering this story. It's so sad that you even have to do this work, for crying out loud. And I know you are just fed up. You are absolutely fed up. And I feel you, man. I feel you, brother, on this. Like, where are these children? Where are the 350,000 children we were told we were going to find them and we were going to get answers? And now we're 100 days later. So we've got good news and bad news, right? We got RFK admitting this, but we still don't know where these children are. So what did you make of RFK's comments, Ryan?
You know, Clayton, I'm finally excited to hear the Trump administration at least talking about it again, right? They campaigned on it for almost 2 years, talking about these missing children. And I thought day one, I promised everybody there is no way that Trump takes office and on day one, we're not kicking in doors, right? We have this operation I've explained on your show, so I won't go into detail how it works. I have a lot of documentaries out there that you can watch, but we when these children are being processed into this system, they are handed over to Border Patrol by the cartels, and the Border Patrol receives the child, and the children have a phone number or a name tag kind of safety pinned to their shirt, or sometimes the cartels will even write a permanent marker on their arm, and they're writing a name, an address, and a phone number. Border Patrol processes that child, and when he's processing the child, he's putting that information by policy into the child's file as the sponsor. Then he calls HHS. HHS comes and picks up the child, takes him and does an initial intake screening at HHS. And they're vetting that adult. So they're trying to contact that sponsor. After they interview the child, they try to contact that sponsor and vet that sponsor. We'll call it vetting if you actually call it that. During that process, they're communicating via WhatsApp. So our government was in contact with every single adult that we delivered one of these children to for at least 14 days, sometimes months at a time. So our government had all of that geolocation data of every cell phone that was used to receive every single child. And some of these men have received up to like 30 or 40 children. So that means all that time they were communicating, you would have their trails, you would know where they went, you know where they lived, you know where they'd shop. We could go out right now, Clayton. I have a list of 8,000 addresses of every single one of these children, where they were delivered to. Me and you could go out tomorrow and probably find 100 of them like that. That so quick, Clayton, it would make your head spin. Even Alex Jones will admit it. In one day, you can go out and find 15 kids. No problem. Anthony Rubin and Carlos Arellano went door to door and were finding some of these children. So if our government wanted to, we could have brought all of these children that are still alive home already.
Right, but the report that HHS, let me follow up on that, because the report that HHS released last September did acknowledge that it had lost these 300,000 children. They knew of their existence and they sort of lost them into the ether, even though they had some information they could follow up on. And there were reports, this one's haunted me ever since, of, for instance, they went and checked on one of these addresses. They found this child. The woman said, "My husband is sexually abusing this child. You should take it away." And they had no recourse to do that. So they know where they are. They know who's being abused. And under the Biden administration, they could do nothing but walk away from a child that was being raped.
Some of these children are being found at homeless shelters. So they're escaping their captives and they're arriving at homeless shelters. And the homeless shelter is contacting HHS and trying to get HHS to take the kid back. And HHS is like, well, not our problem anymore. That's a true story. That's
right.
Really
So whose problem is it? What do we do when we find these children? Who has the legal authority to say, you're out of here? Your days of being trafficked and raped are over. Who can do that?
There is nobody. And our government shouldn't be that person. Our government has shown and proven that in no world should our government ever be responsible for handling children. No government organization should ever be allowed to do so. They've taken custody of 452,121 children, ages 0 to 17, over the last 4 years. And they've vetted the adult sponsors that they delivered these children to, and then delivered 350,000 of these children that they can no longer locate. And we know the horrors and what's happening to these children. Now, we do have a little bit of good news as far as the Trump administration, if you guys want to get into that, as far as decreasing the amount of children that are coming across the border. There's been some really big things that we can get into as well.
Well, that's a big piece of this, right? You have to stop the bleeding first. Mm-hmm. So we've got to secure the border. We've got to stop the flow of these kids coming across the border. So where are we at with that?
So the biggest policy decision that nobody's talking about that has taken place under the Trump administration took place on March 14th of 2025, and that was the DNA testing expansion. Now, if you go to HHS's official website, this is actually active. So it sounds like, I haven't got any confirmation, but at the very least, it looks like we have re-implemented the DNA testing policy. So during the Biden administration, in his first day in office, he signed like 93 executive orders and completely obliterated every one of Trump's immigration policies, removing DNA testing from that. So that means that as these children were coming across during Trump's, I think this was in 2019 or 2018 when Trump implemented the DNA testing, and they DNA tested the first batch of migrant children that were coming across that border, 47% were not the parents. That means these adults that were coming across these children, think about a trafficker with his hands on the shoulders of a child saying, yeah, you're my child, you're my child. And that kid looks up and goes, yeah, I'm his child, right? And they would just release them. Well, now Trump implemented the DNA testing, which was instant, only took 45 minutes to DNA test these children. They can get the results. And I'm not saying every case was perfect and they got right back with their parents in 45 minutes. Not always the case. But I think the policy was that they had to do it within 72 hours or they could be sued. So almost every kid was DNA tested and they would know within 72 hours if that was the parent or not. And they would be reunited right back with the parent and then released into America. So Trump's policies have been re-implemented. Now, why is that so important? So we have talked about numbers on year over year.
Can you just, I'm sorry. Why would the Biden administration stop doing that? They stopped it in 2023.
They're facilitating it.
What is the argument that they would put forth saying we should not check that these kids are with their own parents?
There was absolutely no argument. Just like when they're trying to convince you that men can get pregnant, it's just we can't have that conversation because there's no logic behind it. And when you remove that, what you're doing here, this whole immigration process was to destroy and collapse civilization in America. And the only way that you can do that is to continue to move these children. And you have to disappear them however you can, because the only 2 times that the border was ever shut down, it was once during COVID and then once under Obama. And that was when the children were piled up on the border and the media was down there and you were seeing kids laying in the dirt behind chain link fences with those, those tinfoils like sleeping bags. And the media was so outraged and there was so much outrage, they had to shut down the border. So in order to keep this weaponized mass migration and funnel 30 million migrants into our country over the last 4 years, the children were just collateral damage. And then everybody started to go, oh, wow, the prison industrial complex saw this and goes, oh, wow, we can create a migrant child prison industrial complex and profit off these children just like we profit off the prisoners in America. And that's what you've seen playing out here.
Well, I mean, let's talk about some of these centers, because at the beginning you said, like, Clayton, you and I, we know where these people are. We could just go and grab a whole bunch of these kids right now and rescue them. We know, and we've covered here on the show, Carlos Arellano and others, where these massive facilities are. These former Walmart facilities that are now used as trafficking centers where these children are rounded up, kept, and then they're facilitated and sent out on flights, delivered across the United States, and all facilitated through these NGOs backed by the Biden administration. So we know in Texas, for instance, Greg Abbott loves to put on a good face. We know in Texas where these units are, these centers are. Why is the Trump administration not swooping in and closing these things down where thousands of children are currently, right now, as you and I talk, are being kept in Texas?
Clayton, that is probably the $1 million question. There's 290 of them under OR's care. So across the United States, I think in 39 states, there's 290 of these facilities that hold these migrant children. When I flew into Brownsville, Texas, and you were the first network to break that story on these child detention facilities. When I landed at the Brownsville Walmart to go drone these with Carlos, within 15 minutes of landing at the Brownsville Airport, he took me to 5, Clayton. The largest one was a Walmart that holds, their capacity was like 1,100 or 1,200. There was 2,000 boys in there. Picture Walmart on its busiest day, like Christmas Eve, where you can't even park in the parking lot. This parking lot was that jam-packed. You guys saw the videos. You played it on your show. Every spot in the entire parking lot was filled, and these kids aren't driving themselves. Those are just the employees that were working inside that Walmart that took up every single parking lot in Walmart, and they have an overflow parking lot in the back that was solidly full as well. From there, I went to a girls' facility that held 600 girls ages 0 to 12. That was one where they had the giant pole barn looking facility. And Carlos is like, oh yeah, that's cribs as far as the eye can see, just 60 cribs, one after another, with only 3 employees taking care of 60 crying little babies in these cribs. He said it was a nightmare. Anytime that he had to go pick up children from that facility, he'd get a text being like, oh, you're going to the Donna facility or whatever the name of that facility was. And he'd be like, oh man, we'd all be dreading, trying to text the other coworkers like, hey, can you take my shift today? Because nobody wanted to go. Because if you were picking somebody up from that facility, it meant you were most likely picking up a child, an infant. And then they were going to have to traffic this infant across state lines without a car seat, without diapers, without formula, without food. And he would have these babies for 18 hours without any necessity. And JJ goes, Carlos, how would you... The kid's crying, he's in diapers. How do you change him? You have to change a kid 8 times a day. And Carlos goes, I know, it was so uncomfortable because by the time we'd get the baby to the final destination, it was screaming in agony and pain because it was sitting in its own urine and feces for 18 hours while that poop's burning his butt. And he's screaming and everybody's looking at Carlos like, why does this giant chubby Mexican dude have an Asian little baby that's screaming his head off and he doesn't look like a father? Right? These are the conditions, and we're trafficking these children across state lines. Then I went to another facility that held boys ages 0 to 17, that held 400 boys. Another facility that held girls ages 13 to 17. And the really weird ones are the ones that are children ages 13 to 17. They're always the smaller facilities with a 50 to 100 person capacity, and it's boys and girls. Why are they mixing migrant boys and girls in one facility? They're always the small facilities that have the minimal amount of staff. And you're putting children that have, 80% have been sexually assaulted. They're very hypersexualized, and you're putting them in a facility together with minimal staff. What do you think is going to happen in those facilities?
Now, we had whistleblowers on this show from Health and Human Services that said, this is what's happening. We had whistleblowers For the last 4 or 5 years. Where's the Justice Department on this? Why are they not, following these whistleblowers, prosecuting anybody who was complicit inside the U.S. government?
Natalie, I'm so glad you asked. So this got so out of hand that Merrick Garland's DOJ had to open and file a lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs. If I were to read that on your show, this episode would get taken down. If I just read off what happened to the children inside these facilities that was happening to them by the staff members, we're talking about 4, 5, 6-year-old girls being R-worded by the staff members in these facilities. And if I just read you the lawsuit against all of the employees at every different facility, we're talking about 30 or 40 different facilities. It would take me a half hour.
Are we talking about NGOs or government employees?
Yes, we are talking about Southwest Key Programs. The Merrick Garland filed a lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs. They're the largest one of these child traffickers. Every facility that me and Clayton just talked about are all ran by Southwest Key Programs. So the employees were raping these children inside these facilities, and Merrick Garland's DOJ had to bring a lawsuit against them. Well, on March 14th of 2025, about 1 month and 10 days into Pam Bondi's administration, they decided to drop this lawsuit. Now, nobody's been able to explain to me why in any reality you would drop a lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs. But when they did, this was an official statement by HHS that they determined that Southwest Key Programs would no longer ever be allowed to get children again. And that was why they were going to drop the lawsuit, because they were no longer receiving children. For some odd reason, they weren't going to hold them accountable for allowing what happened to the children in their facilities. But Pam Bondi's DOJ dropped that lawsuit. And then about 4 days ago, I get a message from Bonnie. She's one of the #1 world leading experts on child trafficking. And she says, you're not going to believe this. They just sent out an email to Southwest Key employees in Brownsville, Texas, that they were to return to work at Casa Padre. That was one of the big facilities that we droned to do a fall. They're returning from their furlough that took place in March, and they're going to go through additional ORR required training purposes starting on April 24th of 2025. So this took place like 6 days ago. These same Southwest Key employees, not the ones that were actually busted, but only 10% of cases get reported. So how many of these employees were taking advantage and molesting these children and now are being brought back into work? Why would you be bringing employees like this back to work and giving them additional training and telling the ones, here's the kicker, that specific employees who qualify are now going to receive health benefits and a 401k with contributions from their employer? Why would you be bringing employees back and giving them raises if you didn't plan to bring children back and put children in those facilities?
Yeah. So what are you saying? That the Biden or the new Trump administration is allowing this to happen again?
I'm saying that in order to actually give these children, if we go out and save 300,000 children, where are we going to put them? Bonnie, one of the world's leading experts, says that just to build the facilities and train the staff, you're talking about 6 to 12 months out. And she's like nose to the grindstone on this stuff. She's very well aware of what's going on. She says that there is nothing in the works. So she thinks that they're going to try to magically redeem Southwest Key Programs and like rebrand their image and then start going and claiming that we're rescuing these children by putting them back into Southwest Key's care.
Okay. Well, Ryan Mehta, thank you for bringing us this story. It's absolutely bonkers. And we need to stay on top of it because it's not enough to just say, we know that there are these 300,000 children. We knew that from the Biden administration. They flat out released a report. We know that number is very conservative. It's probably twice that. And then for RFK Jr. to say, that's over now. It's done now. We don't do that anymore. Obviously, that's not enough. We need to continue to follow this. So that's why you can follow Ryan Mehta and all of he posts his documentaries on X and other places. So good to see you as always.
God bless. Thank you.
All right. Well, we have more news to get to. We're going to talk about liberal universities in a panic because they may actually have to pay high interest student debt. They will have to pay student loans if they fail to provide value. And actually, because, this is the problem, is all of these students, what they're doing is racking up high interest for a university degree that's totally useless. and then they're stuck with high interest government loans. And what do they care, right? They get to make money. But what if they had to be on the hook for the value they provided? That's what Republicans want to pass. And I'm here for it. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, before we do that, though, we want to tell you about our friends over at Genucel. Genucel has a really sweet story. A lady named Phyllis walks into a neighborhood pharmacy in New Jersey and asks the pharmacist for antioxidant wrinkle cream. The pharmacist says, I'll compound one for you. Come back tomorrow. She goes home. She uses the cream for 3 days. And her dermatologist says, when did you get work done? Well, that's the start of Genucel, ladies and gentlemen. Genucel skincare was born that way. And in fact, we absolutely love their under eye serum for bags and puffiness. This stuff actually works. This was over 25 years ago, and Genucel has shipped millions of orders. They still have the same philosophy of antioxidants, same natural base, same chef in the kitchen. And in fact, they're celebrating 25 years and offering the best pricing since Phyllis walked into that pharmacy. So just in time for Mother's Day, you can save an extra 50% off Genucel's pricing for their complete skincare package, their under eye bags and puffiness treatment, jawline sculpting, and it has immediate effects and results. You can look 5, 10, even 15 years younger. Guaranteed or your money back. Use the code REDACTED by heading over to Genucel.com/redacted. Every order includes free shipping. And again, you get an extra discount at checkout with Redacted. That's Genucel.com/redacted. How you doing over there, Clayton?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling great.
Yeah.
I'm feeling great. I'm just really pissed off about what Ryan and what we were all just talking about with Ryan.
Yeah.
And hoping that we get answers on it. So, hey, how is everyone doing in the chat room today? Great to see all of our friends on Rumble. And
can you take Clayton's shot so you can see how nice his shirt is? Take Clayton's solo so that I can wipe my nose.
Oh, got it. Look at my fantastic shirt.
That is a lovely shirt, by the way, Clayton.
This is a fantastic shirt that I have here. Let me mute Natalie's microphone because she's still dealing with influenza B. So, yeah. How's this nice old shirt looking? It's a comfortable shirt. Are you done? You need
I'm
a tissue?
okay now. Yeah.
Need a tissue break? Need a nose rinse?
I do.
Oh, right.
All right.
How many of you guys are suffering from it? Have you guys been dealing with colds out there? So
many in our students, in our kids' schools. This is the way of it right now. Is so many kids are out sick, and they're getting better, and then this is the end of the school year. Tomorrow's May. We're almost there. I'm going to stop bringing home things from other little petri dishes, but that's the way of it. I have affection-acquired immunity from influenza B. You don't. Yeah, but you sound like shit. Yeah. And I felt like shit. But I earned it. Right. Good. Now for the next 7 months, you've got protection from it. Yeah. I did, in fact, though, watch an amazing show on Netflix. I want to tell everybody about it. Watch When Life Gives You Tangerines. It's a Korean show. The most romantic thing I've ever seen in my life. Bawling buckets. So watch it with me and then reach out to me when you need emotional support because I could talk a blue streak about it. That's not what this show's about, but I decided to tell you while I'm fooling around before our next show. All right. Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's do it. Our next story. Yeah. All right. Right now, people who are 5-6 figures in debt for student loans with useless degrees that they're not even using, well, they're pissed off because the federal government says you need to start paying those in May or we will garnish your wages and your assets. So social media is full of people crying about it because for the last 5 years, taxpayers have been footing that debt. Well, Republicans have a brilliant new way to fix this. A new bill would have the university pay unpaid student loans instead of the federal government if the students do not find any return on investment for their degree. Not the taxpayers, the schools. So think about why this is brilliant. Right now, you can go out and get a degree based on very high interest rate loans, and that degree can be totally useless in something like gender studies of biracial indigenous people. And then you come out 5-6 figures in debt. What does the university care? They got paid. Now it's just the economy that's not hurting, not them. Even if you were to say take a degree like that and you somehow didn't become a barista, but you became an academic, well, you're starting out at $50,000 a year. That's barely enough to live off of. So you're not going to really pay down that debt. Now, so these universities have no qualms selling you a useless degree, but they would if they were on the hook. So now, according to this bill, if they don't make a productive worker out of you, then they have to pay the unpaid debt. This will very much change their curriculum, don't you think? So think about it. They can charge young people through the nose. Here's a list of real university classes that exist in America that they can charge students high fees for. Well, these are real real classes that people go into debt for. The sociology of Miley Cyrus, politicizing Beyonce, wasting time on the internet, surviving the zombie apocalypse.
I want to take the sociology of Miley Cyrus class.
Do you?
Yeah.
Eve could teach it because our youngest really likes Hannah Montana.
Yeah.
So I probably could teach it too.
Wait. There's a class on tree climbing.
Tree climbing. Now, I'm not saying that's not a useful thing to learn, but you could probably take that at a local community college for a very low fee. But the fact that you're having to enroll in Cornell. Yeah.
I figured that out when I was like 6.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody paid me.
No? You didn't have to go to Cornell? You didn't have to take an SAT
I mean, to
get into a class?
That class would last 5 minutes. You'd be there in that class and they'd say, okay, you put one foot on this branch, another foot on the other branch, and then you're done.
Right.
1 foot above the other, and then you're done.
Yeah. These are real courses.
And like when I used to climb a tree, like bring a packed lunch with you, you know, and hang out up there, bring a packed lunch and hang out and read a book for a few hours.
Also very important, if you can get up, you have to get down on your own.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
This is Cornell.
Yeah,
this is great.
Cornell University. Okay, Black and Queer in Leather. That's also Queer Art of Drag. Invented languages, Klingon and beyond. Now, again, I'm not saying that maybe you don't want to study that on your own, but do you have to get into a university and go into debt to take classes like this? And what kind of productive workers are we making from students who spend their time in classes like this? Well, we know that, right? We know what happens for that. We get this liberal generation of kids who romanticize and fetishize big words about theory and can do no real life skills. That's what happens. And then they're pissed off that they're in debt for those useless degrees. So do you think a college would continue to produce curriculum like this if they were going to be on the hook for the worker that it creates? I don't think they would. So here is the plan that's being put forward by Republicans. It's the Student Success and Taxpayer Savings Plan. In addition to holding universities responsible for debt, it would also prevent any future president from any attempts at loan forgiveness. So what President Biden tried to do, which is forgive student loans at the taxpayer expense, it would not allow that from any future administration, and repeal a range of burdensome and costly Biden-era regulations. It also make changes to the Pell Grants so that you don't have to use it for a 4-year university. You could use it for a short-term vocational school. That's pretty great. Again, the purpose of higher education is to make workers, right? Not make people who love to study and stay in school forever and romanticize large vocabulary. It also sets borrowing limits for students so they don't just rack up debt early in their life. Seems like a really good bill made to fix what's obviously broken. So instead of just fixing people who have taken that debt on already and putting that on the taxpayer, it's making sure that this does not happen again, putting that debt burden on the university. And I love it. So we'll see where it goes. It has to move through one more committee before it goes to the House floor for a vote. Republicans could pass it if there's no lobbyists stopping them. And you have to think that universities are going to freak out. Like, what? We've been able to charge students for this useless service for decades. Why can't we just keep doing that? It works for us.
But doesn't this sort of violate the rules of capitalism, though? I mean, if you're forcing these universities, I mean, they're putting out a product. Someone is then kind of dumb enough to buy it. And
yes,
and they're dumb enough to go along with it. And, you know, to me, this is like a free market thing. This is the way capitalism works. If it sucks, and now we're seeing the return on investment from universities, like return, you know, college degrees are essentially worthless.
Yes,
now
but
for a lot
Clayton,
of
this
people,
is
unless they're-
America. And if I buy a lamp at Home Depot and I don't like it, I can return it,
Right.
right? I can return whatever I want. I could return
the
used
student,
socks.
But will the student be able to return it? Be like, hey, you know what, Purdue University, that Miley Cyrus class really didn't help me in life.
You sold me a bill of goods. I want my money back. I don't want to pay for this.
But you
It
have
didn't make me a productive worker, so you're on the line.
but like buyer beware. You'd have to know going into it. Like taking a class on Miley Cyrus is not going to create dividends.
Shouldn't the creators stop doing that? There's no market incentive to make them stop producing idiots. There's no market incentive. They are incentivized to continue to produce idiots.
Who is?
The universities.
The university.
Yeah. They are incentivized to expand their liberal arts and humanities programs.
But then there's still stupid people taking these classes.
Right. And so the university would have to say,
And you have
if
this
we
liberal
have
group-
to pay for this, we're not going to do this anymore. There's no consequence for them to continue to do this.
So if the students are allowed to basically return the class like
Yeah.
they would a broken box fan at Home Depot,
Yeah.
then the university would say, you know what, maybe these garbage classes about climbing trees are not in our best interest.
This is what I think.
But then that also opens up a can of worms for someone who like goes and tries to become a doctor. They go through the University of Pittsburgh Medical School and they want to become, a cardiologist, but they don't because they're not good at it. Can they get their money back?
No, because the burden of proof would be on the student, is that this actually did not prepare me for any job. The cardiologist, the fact that they failed, there was market value, right? So the university can say, we did actually prepare you for this very specific job. But someone who then has a degree in like queer indigenous studies, right,
Sounds
can
painful.
make a point that there was never a job for this. And, I think that a lot of these people think like, oh, it's so interesting what I'm doing. I'm so enlightened. I'm studying sexual deviance of Mexican gay immigrant workers, which I actually did have a friend who did that.
That's an actual class?
Because I have a very liberal sociology degree, and I had a cohort who was in school with me who was studying sexual deviance amongst Mexican migrant workers. And he part of his study was to go and troll for these men. He was a gay guy. He actually did this as part of his...
He's like, I need to go do some field research.
That's what he did. Yes, he did this.
And the worst part about it is most of these universities, of course, are receiving massive amounts of federal grants. So on top of the fact that these universities just have these garbage programs and the students are then massively in student loan debt, the schools are also receiving massive amounts of taxpayer funding in the form of grants.
Right.
I mean, look at Harvard crying its eyes out right now. So on top of that, I mean, you've got a twofold problem here. So we are already funding this.
Yeah.
We are already footing the bill for this stuff.
Right. So will they stop it if they had to pay it back? Like, we did not service this student in any kind of way that is good for the economy or grander humanity. And we produced a useless person who can only talk about lesbian basket weaving. And so we should be on the hook for that. I don't know. I like it because, I've lived in Europe where you can't return things at all.
No, this is amazing. We lived in Europe for 5 years and, it was a fun adventure, but it's like, I went and bought a lamp one day for our apartment.
At Loja de Cato Preto.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're still on my list.
You're still on my crap list, Loja de Cato de Preto. So I freaking bought this lamp. It was a brand new lamp. I got it home and the thing didn't work. It didn't work. It would like fizzle out. It wouldn't allow the light bulb to. So I brought it back like you would do in America to a store.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't take it back.
No, she went and plugged it in and she goes, it works fine. And we're like, but it doesn't always work. And she was like,
And I'm
too
like, see
bad,
this?
get the
Like,
hell
do you
out.
see that this piece up here is like broken?
Yeah.
It's like, no, sorry. But I'll give you like, and then some of them will just give you store credit.
No, she was not even willing
She's like,
to
no,
do that.
no, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
And I mean, they do not take things back. Like you buy something, sorry.
Yeah.
Even though it's broken, sorry.
Right.
We'll give you store credit, but I don't want to shop at your store anymore because you guys suck. Doesn't matter. Here's your store credit.
Yeah. No, I'm for this. I think you should be able to return something that's shit. So
Yeah.
So I went to Portland State, university, and they actually require you to take like to make you a well-rounded person. I had to take an entire like series of classes that had absolutely nothing to do with my degree. So I had to take a program like on the side called Cities in the Environment, and I had to just take a bunch of like ecology classes, like things that just like, but it was like they were the most garbage classes ever, but I had to take them to get my degree.
Yeah, I took parkour.
My God.
It was called. What was it called? Well, you go around a park and you do the
waste of time is what it's called.
You know, when you walk around a park and you see like a balance beam and stuff, it was that where we like went around the university and like went to the balance beam and but then we walked next to the pull-up bar and we did that. And then we like walked. Yeah, that was a real university class.
Sherry Carter in our chat says that's why trade schools, 2 years, all the classes have value. That's right. I mean, people should learn these skills like, carpentry, plumbing, like learn like actual skills rather than this garbage, how to climb a tree.
Right. All right. Let us know what you think of this. If you think that the university should be on the hook for doing shit work. I like it. I think they're all going to freak out and actually maybe have to, I don't know, produce productive workers. But that's just me. So let us know how you feel.
Anything else you guys want to talk about today in the show? Parkour. Yeah, people love the parkour.
I don't think it was called parkour, though. I can't remember what it was called. It was called... I'm going to look it up. Let's see if I can ask AI. What do you call it when you go around a park?
Okay. Well, you do that. I'm going to tell you about our newsletter. Every day we publish a newsletter. It's totally free. If you go to redacted.inc, that's the place to go. Put in your email address, and then you will receive a welcome email from us, and you get the newsletter delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning. Natalie will explain the parkour story tomorrow in the newsletter. She'll detail that a little bit there. But yeah, it's a free newsletter, and you can read it in about 5 or 10 minutes over your cup of coffee. It's a great newsletter. And you just need to confirm. You'll get a welcome email. You just need to click confirm, and it might go to your spam folder, your junk folder. Just drag it into your inbox so you'll be sure that you receive it on Thursday morning. So tomorrow we'll be back with a live show at 4 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank all of you guys for subscribing and being a part of our show here. We really appreciate it as we dial in these things in our new studio. And as Natalie is, still not feeling well and still struggling through all of that. So thank you guys for suffering through with us today.
It is called parkour. Parkour. Yeah, not parkour. Parkour is like freestyle walking where you try and like jump off things.
Are you having are you having an episode?
Like
you look like Elaine from Seinfeld trying to do that dance.
Where like you go and see a curb and you do a backflip off it. That's parkour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like the videos where they like teenagers are like jumping across rooftops.
Yeah, but parkour is something different. Is where you go around and.
My 14-year-old son would show me videos of these guys jumping off rooftops, and he's like, "Yeah, isn't this cool?" I'm like, "Yeah, don't you ever freaking try that."
It's so stupid.
Like, let these morons fall off a roof onto a railing and they smash their balls like that, but don't you do it. All right?
I won't do it. You don't do it either. Stay safe and come back tomorrow, you guys. We will be here every day.
4 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks for subscribing. And all of our friends out on Beck Television, we love you guys as well as Rumble, Twitch, YouTube, and X. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow.